Welcome back, Bandecfolks. You're tuned in to Bandecdotes again. I'm so glad to be doing this again. This is season 2, and we're kicking this off. I've got my homie Tyler McAllister. We're doing something new, something different with the channel. But we're gonna just jump right into it. We don't really have a name for the show quite yet, but I got a co-host this time around. He was on the show previously under his rap persona Steiner, but him and I go way back. We sat on the bus together. We're from the same hood. Tyler McAllister, let's do this.
Hey, awesome. I'm glad to jump in. As you know, our friend Phil here has, he's got a little baby now. I'm here, I guess, to help try to fill in some sort of void and I guess add a structure back to the podcast and try to alleviate some of the work that's going on with Phil. He worked really hard to build this brand and I think it's really cool. So I appreciate very much you letting me come on. I have such a love for just the local scene and a lot of the bands moving forward. And Phil was such a big step in reintroducing me into this music scene. Phil's the reason I bought a left-handed guitar and I'm like riffing again. So I think things have sort of come full circle with us because as much as you credit me as being this person who got you into this sort of music and stuff, I also feel like I was kind of just listening to trap and I had kind of fully abandoned punk and hardcore, and I feel such a reinvigoration in it now that I've been checking out local bands again, and I don't know, I really appreciate the scene, and I think that you've been so fundamental in making sure that there's life in this scene, and I don't think there's many people who really have thrown themselves at the scene as much as you have, and I think it's a thankless job. And I'm happy to come on board and join the endeavor.
Yeah. Ready to not be thanked. I hope you're ready.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're going to expand outside of just covering local stuff. We want to try to make the show a bit more entertaining. We kind of want to, do some goofs and gaffs and, maybe some video essays, live streaming eventually, going out to shows, doing some more guerrilla interview style stuff. We want to expand the channel, but I want to make sure that it's still at its core something that celebrates Ontario heavy music, essentially, and alternative music in general. So
couldn't have said it better myself.
And so I guess with that in mind, because we do have a big docket, because it's been quite a bit since a video has been posted at all, we've desperately compiled a list, kind of last minute, but we're doing our best here. We're going to get caught up. So what we're going to do is try to get all of the local releases that come out covered on a monthly basis at least. So everyone's still getting their coverage. It's still getting celebrated. And I guess to jump into that, Phil, you've heard the new Mile End song, right? Avarice?
Yeah, Avarice, yes. This is super good. I love Mile End. The guys are great. Jake, we've had him on the show before. I think it was last year they did the whole FCHC, which was a cool single. This is another new single. I imagine they're gearing up for a release. That's that's all I could suspect. But this single is great. I really enjoyed it. This band is always just doing interesting things with hardcore, and not to say that hardcore isn't interesting, but they're just breaking outside some of the norms, and especially with the vocal styles and structures of the song. This song is definitely no short of that. I really enjoy the song. What did you think about it?
I think that it's really good. Obviously, right off the bat, the hesitation wasn't because of anything like that. I definitely think that they have sort of a throwback style to that very early 2000s that feeling of when metalcore and hardcore was still getting itself sort of figured out, where people were still debating whether Darkest Hour was a metalcore band or not.
Yeah.
So I think they're really good at throwing back to that sort of style. I think that they intentionally even the mixes sound very intentionally buried in a good way, I want to say. I know Davis is the producer, I'm assuming, on those songs, and the mixer. Yep. I haven't looked into it, but I can only imagine. So I'm assuming that's an intentional choice from him too. The way it's mixed, that sort of echoey, sort of crunchy, dissonant noise. So yeah, I really like it. It reminds me of almost even old Misery Signals, Malice and Magnum Heart.
True.
Yeah, it has a lot of those vibes to me. Yeah, and it's thick. Bangs. Good stuff.
Love me some thick bangs.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. So, this next one, you might be a little biased. So, I might just be S in your D a little bit here. But Sinner AD released Heap of Human Ashes. I have some notes here. My one of them is in human vocals. Do you have anything to say about that, Phil?
That was kind of what I was going for. It was just yeah, I mean, like we've got this whole trend of like Lorna Shore and his pig stuff. I mean, I not that necessarily like that was inspiration. The biggest inspiration for that tune was actually old Suicide Silence, the way that like Mitch
Right.
came to the table and was just like and just made this like, I don't know, that first record is untouchable.
And you know what's funny that you mentioned that? And again, it's going to sound like I'm here to ask your D a bit, but I specifically remember thinking when I was listening to the song, and this is in my notes too, is that the vocals feel very present. And that was the thing about Suicide Silence, the sort of special spice that I don't think people realized at the time that that band had with Mitch Lurker was this just absolute presence in a song. And it's I find with a lot of deathcore, it kind of rides, or not that you guys are deathcore necessarily, but obviously there's influence there.
Yep.
And I think that a lot can ride or die on the vocalist in a band like that. Like obviously, like guitar heads are always going to like the guitar work. Kyle's a fantastic guitarist. Again, Kyle's been a friend of mine my whole life, and watching him evolve as a guitarist has been phenomenal. The song's also just so well mixed. Who mixed it?
That was Marco Brissett, who he's the guitarist of Dead Tired.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. Dead Tired's incredible band. I'm sure everyone listening to this would already be aware of a band like that. Yeah, the mix again, really good at bringing your vocals really forward. And I feel like, especially as someone who's, as a vocalist, I guess, it can feel, especially in such a busy genre, like any sort of like extreme metal genre, it can feel really safe to bury yourself in the mix. You know what I mean? Like, and just kind of let the natural distortion from all the other instruments sort of hide any flaws and insecurities. But in that song, it's very, you hear a comfort in your vocals that I think is like obviously years in the making. And I think it's really good. And I'm really excited to see what you guys have coming next, because that song is very, very impressive.
Oh, well,
So
wait, thank you.
yeah. So I'm going to take your D out of my mouth, but honestly, really, really good job. Really like the stuff. And I mean, obviously it's not just you in that band. Shout out to everyone else. Shout out to Kyle. Like, I love that dude. And I can't believe where he's at as a guitarist. It's absolutely incredible.
Absolutely.
So next up, we have the Phantom Lung release, Abhorrent Entity.
Oh, I love this. This is Andy Dinner. He's I mean, he's been on a lot of these people have been on the show. He's been on the show with Reno. I loved that episode. That's actually one of my favorite episodes of season 1. He put this together, this new EP out, and it's just so good. And what's different about this EP versus the first one is he is actually doing the vocals on this and the guitar work versus
Okay.
I can't remember who they had. I think he said they had the old vocalist from The End. Do you remember them?
Yes, I remember The End. I really liked The End.
Yeah, so they had the vocalist from that band on the first EP, and then I think he was just too busy to make anything happen. So Andy just took it into his own hands and does all the vocals himself. And I really like the vocals on this EP. This is one of my favorite things about it. It's this like growling, menacing. I don't want to say like it's it just feels refreshing. Something I feel like I haven't heard in a while.
Yeah. It's interesting to hear that one person is responsible for so much going on there. How would I even describe this? It's like compressed in a really interesting way. I have a show note here. I'm going to be very transparent about stuff like this. I wrote that it sounds like black metal being played in a submarine below the ocean in the best way possible. I write these things typically as I'm hearing a song for the first time, so I can have some of that sort of authenticity. It's a suffocating track, or set of tracks rather, the 5 tracks on it. It's very hectic, unpredictable. It'd be really interesting to see it live. It's just very like, it's this like just sort of assault of like compressed but wet sounding noise, but
Yeah.
but the pinches come out so clear. So there's this, it's mixed. I can't even describe it. It's just mixed in a way that sounds like it sounds like a giant like mythological underwater creature. Like it's abhorrent entity, I guess. So I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's really cool. It sounds evil. It sounds
Yeah.
very very evil. So
And I think Scott Middleton mastered that.
that's the icing on the cake then, isn't
There you
it?
go.
So
Yeah.
yeah, no, that's really cool though. They're a really cool band. I'm really excited to see what they do. Next up, Silverstein has released a new song, Poison Pill. We have not listened to that yet, but if everything goes according to plan, you're going to see a video of us reacting to that soon. And if you don't, I'm sure we'll all live. But we are going to try to get a reaction to that song because Silverstein's kind of a classic. They were, and you know what? Quite frankly, just to take a quick little detour on Silverstein, and I think a lot of people would agree. I think we all kind of went through a stage where Silverstein was sort of cringe, but I still go back to like discovering the waterfront. And there's like the Ides of March and certain songs I just still really love.
First time I actually ever heard of Silverstein was when they came and played St. Catharines. They played the Red Square, and I
Right.
saw a fucking line like around the building, and it was like the first time I'd ever seen like that place like that popular, which is crazy to think because I've seen Death from Above there, and they're huge now, right?
We'll talk about the Death from Above show one day because it was absolutely insane.
Yeah, so Silverstein, yeah. And over the years, what was the last record that I really enjoyed? I think it's called Rescue. I think I mean it's probably a decade old now, but it's the one that Brennan Murphy featured on one of the tracks, and it was such a cool record, and I loved it back then. And then I think they put out a handful of records since, and then the last record that I checked out by them was the record that came out before the pandemic. I think it's called A Beautiful Place to Drown. And I love the record. It's got a good tone. It's got several catchy songs on it. And it blew me out my feet to think that like a Silverstein record was like giving me these kind of vibes in this year. But here we are. So I think they
Yeah.
put out a record since and then yeah, they've got this new single. So I haven't heard it yet.
Yeah, I think there's bands that it feels like post pandemic and I guess during the pandemic too. There was a lot of emo revival happening. There was the When We Were Young festival, so obviously there was a resurgence in popularity in general. And I think some bands have come back and like sort of kept their sound, but in like an elegant and like non tacky way.
Right.
And some bands haven't. So I think that Silverstein has been pretty like I don't think that they're ever going to write. I don't think they're going to have the impact, quite like When Broken is Easily Fixed and Discovering. But I think they've remained relatively consistent. And Silverstein actually has an album from 2011 called Short Songs,
Oh, really?
and it is just a bunch of straight up punk songs and punk covers, and it rules. And I recommend it to everybody. It's really really good. And I don't know if many people know about that album, but it absolutely bangs.
I've never heard that record. What are some of the covers that are on it?
That I actually do not know, and even by looking at the names, I don't necessarily know.
You're a phony! Hey, this guy's a great big phony!
It's 22 songs. I'm looking at it right now.
22 songs?
Yeah, and each
Holy
song,
shit.
the longest song on here is like a minute 36. Yeah.
That's amazing. No, I've never even heard of this release by them.
Yeah, it's really cool. I randomly stumbled across it. And it's probably my favorite like release by them that isn't, When Broken is easily Fixed or Discovering the Waterfront.
You know what I mean, we're on the topic of Silverstein. The one song that I really enjoyed by them was off of that I think it's 18 Candles, which is just like the early years of them.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like a remix of Smile in Your Sleep on there.
I still love that song, and it's like I
understand
it's
so good.
It's a corny song, but it's really good. I don't know. I always like that one. I feel like that was if I looking back, that was probably like the song that got me into them, because I remember that being like the song that was on Much Music and stuff like that. So I feel like that was like the big one for me, and then I kind of worked backwards on them.
Yeah, Coffee Mug by Descendants is on this record.
Yeah, see, and there goes my punk credibility.
That's right. You're a big fat phony.
And I knew Coffee Mug was a cover, but again, like I don't know what to tell you guys. I didn't listen to much Descendants. I will now if you guys want me to. So moving on, our boys in Gavel actually have released a couple tracks. Hold Me Down and Step by Step. What'd you think?
I can't. I'm pretty sure I listened to these tracks. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I do remember. Sorry. It's just so many bands and so many times. I can't remember which song had it. I think it was the second song off it, Step by Step. They used a drum. There's this tiny drum set that Hellbent bought at a Value Village, and we used it in a video that still hasn't come out yet. It's like it's been edited for fucking a year, and I can't tell you why it hasn't come out yet. But we used it, and Nick plays the drums behind it, and he's I don't know if you've ever met Nick, but he's like a tree. He's really tall to begin with.
Okay.
So he's like this like ghoul behind the kit while he's playing it. It's absolutely hilarious. And then he's kept it at the studio. And actually, I was with Nick yesterday doing some recording, and he was telling me that the snare to this like child set is like his go-to sample. Like apparently it's got this perfect like during Step by Step by Gavel mid song, they it's just like a break in the song, they set up the drum kit and they set up the mics on it, and they like straight up played it, and it sounds great. I love that kind of effect.
I was really wondering what that was when I heard it.
Yeah.
I remember thinking specifically too while I was listening. First of all, I love both these tracks. I wrote my show notes that this is hardcore soaked in Hetfield riffs, and I'm completely right. It's Metallica core, and that's honestly my favorite type of hardcore. And I remember listening to Step by Step, and I'm like, I like this song, but I think Hold Me Down is just a little bit more interesting. And right as my mind thought that, I heard that weird drum sample, and I was like, what is going on? And it brought me like right back into the song this interesting way. I don't know what their plan is for that live.
Yeah, really.
But it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, Gavel's been, very consistent. I think they're the consistency of so many of the bands that we have around here is just so crazy. I remember growing up and like, I don't know, I just don't remember everyone being so goddamn good at music all the time.
I know, right?
Really awesome.
I think maybe we can thank social media for that, because I mean, MySpace definitely had its presence when we were that age, but necessarily I learned from this show that Brampton had a huge scene in the same days that like Niagara had this huge scene.
Yeah.
And I had absolutely zero clue that it happened. I knew bands of like what was it? The Junction that came out of there, and I can't there's a couple other bands that came out of there. And I knew of them because they came and played scene. But however, I didn't know that there was this like crazy scene happening in Brampton. And I believe some of the guys in Gavel are in Brampton. I could be wrong from that. But that's where Mile End's from too.
Right. Yeah, no, it's obviously back in the day, there was like the scene board for Scene Festival, and I guess on a larger extent the B9 board, but yeah, it was very fragmented. You really I remember, actually, this is going to make me sound really dumb, but I remember when I first got introduced to heavier bands like A Day in a Death Wish, Murder Thy Maker, I thought local was like a genre.
Oh, really?
So I'd be like listening to Kill Switch Engage, and I'd be, this is my favorite local band.
That's hilarious, and that's that's honest, and
it's just how fragmented it all was. I had no idea what that even meant. I'm like, oh, this is what local bands sound like, because that's how it was introduced to me.
I love that. I think that's adorable.
Well, great. So I guess moving on to something a little grosser. Mortuary.
This Mountain Dew. That's what we're going to talk about.
What is that? Pitch Black, it's called?
It's called Pitch Black. I bought it specifically because we were going to have an interview. I haven't tasted it yet because...
so we're getting your genuine reaction.
We're getting a genuine reaction.
How cold is that puppy?
It's pretty cold. It's actually pretty cold. I'm in a basement, so, it's always just cold. Nice. It says it's a citrus punch flavor, which is weird to think that it's like a black citrus. Tastes like Baja Blast.
There you go. There you Mountain Dew, you've done it again.
You've done it again. Okay, moving on.
So I think the next thing we have here on the docket, oh yeah, Mortuary Slab, which this band just reeks of my favorite naming convention, which is just like, just be as awful as possible. So they've released 2 songs. Oh my God, we're gonna need, my pop filter is gonna blow off my mic. Purging putrid fluid and orgasms in mold.
So metal. I love those titles. I love it.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's my favorite naming convention. I've always seen it as sort of just like trying to be like, you know, the horror movies of metal. You know what I mean? It's probably not, don't think about it too much and move on. Old notable shout out. One of my favorite old band names of all time is a band called Fermented Sperm Swamp. That's a real band. Praise, you know, shout out grindcore because it's an important genre. Or I think that's called porn grind or something.
To that effect.
Band slaps. It's super slammy. Again, I love when bands just sound like a haze of noise, but then when they play pinch harmonics, they come out crystal clean. It's like one of my favorite things in heavy music. So I really like how they seem to move in this like bog-like fashion through their songs, but then all of their high riffs seem really, really just pristine. Like even the vocals just sound like this haze of evil.
Yeah. And John from this band also plays in Last Wretch.
Okay, yeah, Last Wretch, another great band from around here. Lucky to have those guys around. I don't know why that sounded sarcastic. I didn't mean it that way. This is this is my second podcast of my life, guys. So my tone might be weird.
Listen to the words.
Yeah, do not listen to my tone. It is inaccurate. I cannot be trusted at any moment. All right, guys. So the next band we have coming up is actually a really exciting new band. A lot of people have been talking about them. There's a lot of buzz around this band. They're called Fight on Sight. They've released 2 new singles, Buried Alive and Suffering. What did you think?
I thought they were great. What I thought it was funny, the first show that they played was with Buried Alive, and then they have the singles. So I wonder if that's some sort of like tribute or ode to being like, you know what, we didn't have, maybe they didn't even have a song title for that song until they played with Buried Alive. I don't know what the story is behind that, but that was one of my first thoughts that I thought of when I saw that one of those titles was called Buried Alive. Very cool. I love the vocals. I always love that style of hardcore. Super refreshing, always fun. I think I liked the second tune, Suffering, more than I liked Bury Your Alive, but they were both still really good songs.
Yeah, no, I agree. I liked both very much. I really liked the gang vocal mixing on the second track. It sounded really, really good. Matched with Kennedy's voice really well. I wrote here that they have chunky metal dipped guitar riffs. I was picturing a biscotti. And you know how on a biscotti, you'll just have that little bit of layer of chocolate or whatever, your hazelnut, your vanilla, what have you. We aren't picky here. That's how their guitar riffs are, with just a little bit of metal on top. And I really like it. It stays true again to that sort of almost like Metallica core, which is so popular, but I completely understand. Just tinging that hardcore with a little bit of metal. It also, I don't know whether this was inadvertent or not, but it gave me, maybe it's Kennedy's delivery on songs, but it gave me a Trapped Under Ice vibe. Cool. I don't know why necessarily. It doesn't necessarily sound like a power violence band, but I don't know. I guess the aggression of the whole project just gave me the same of their vibes. And I also haven't heard like an old fashioned, like sneaky slow down breakdown like that in such a long time. It reminded me of that, like the first time I heard it in that Johnny Truant song.
True, yeah.
And it just like blows your mind. Like I remember the track ending and going to Spotify and clicking, and there was still a minute left, and I was like, huh? And then as soon as I looked, like it dinged. So yeah, really cool band. I'm really excited to see what they put together. And I just like there just seems to be a general level of positivity around this band that I seem to really appreciate. I can't really explain it. There just seems to be this sort of like positive radiance coming off this band, despite their name being Fight on Sight.
Yeah, I was just about to say, Fight on Sight, but they're super popular. Yeah, but
and just they seem positive. They seem like good people. Yeah, people who want to fight you on sight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brampton artist Dear God released a song "Weaponize This." I don't know if you've listened to this one.
I haven't yet, no, but part of the Off Leash crew, which is the Mile End folks, Do Flame, and I think there's another one. Are you familiar with the Off Leash folks? Do you know?
No, actually, I've just been following Dear God since checking him out at that show down here with Comeback Kid.
Yeah. So Off Leash is this collective from Brampton. I don't know if the best way to kind of describe it is kind of like a new age, like CKY kind of deal.
Okay.
They have these long form videos which are like filmed on these old like 20 they're only about like 20-year-old cameras, but they were groundbreaking at the time, so like Sony like handy cams. And there's like skate footage, there's footage of their songs and like music videos that like of Mile End, Do Flame, and Dear God. And it's like I think they just put out a season 3. So there's 3 long form videos that you could check out. They're funny. There's funny moments. The editing is really tongue in cheek. Dear God is part of this collective. I haven't checked out the single before, but I have checked them out before. They just got announced. They're playing Hold Your Ground Fest. And they've got a massive following. I don't know if you've checked out their Spotify followers. They got like 45,000 monthly listeners, which is great. I love to see that from Ontario hardcore. But I haven't. No, I can't say that I have listened to the single.
Yeah, fair enough. I checked it out last night. And again, that's all really interesting. I think it helps contextualize what I'm hearing, because I remember listening to their music before the show, and then going to the show and seeing a punk band, and then going home and listening to the music again, being like, I can't even translate what I heard. Like I don't know how that happened. So and then hearing the new single "Weaponize This." I wrote that it's hip-hop flavored electronic punk. It reminds me of like NASCAR Aloe, a little bit of what Slow Tie is doing with his new album. A huge recommendation, by the way, if you guys haven't checked out Slow Tie, or if you're just not really into British rap, Slow Tie's new album is more like a folky, punky. I don't know, it's really good. I've never been a big fan of Slow Tie, but I really like the new stuff. So we're talking about locals here, so I'll stop talking about Slow Tie. But you know what? Good for Dear God, because Dear God kind of made me think about Slow Tie. So that must mean something. But yeah, I think it's really cool. I think this is definitely someone worth keeping an eye on. And with all that contextualized, with the little sort of the CKY-esque, as soon as you said it to me, it kind of clicked.
Yeah, and I've met the sole member behind Dear God. The name is escaping me, but quite the character. I think they were wearing like a silk button-up shirt when I saw them, and right. I was and like I think they saw my busted ass crusty tattoo that Dylan did, and they loved it. They were like, Yo, that Samson tattoo is sick.
I love that tattoo. It's a good tattoo.
Yeah. I love what this band is doing, and definitely keep an eye on this band.
So moving on, we have Sky Caught Fire. They've put out a new single called Guilt, and once again, we are hoping to get a reaction film to that very soon. So please keep an eye on the channel, and we are going to react to that one live. They're awesome guys. Band's cool. We want to give them as much coverage as we can as they go. So please keep tuned, and we'll be reacting to that soon. We're still getting things worked out here. We have a lot of kinks to work out, but like I was saying, we really want to make sure we're doing a lot of coverage on the local scene, and keeping the heart and soul of the channel and the spirit of the scene itself alive. And the next song that has been released is by our friends in Single Wound. They released a song called Drop the Knife, and that song is featuring our friend Tommy and Rust.
Yeah, again, I haven't heard this song at the moment. Hopefully we'll get another reaction to this. But I mean, Cole has been on the show. Tommy's been on the show. These are all homies. Single Wound is another band that is there. We were just talking about Sky Caught Fire kind of doing an ode to the old school stuff. This feels more like the new school stuff in the sense of like the last 10 years, a little bit more produced, definitely like architects kind of vibe.
Mhm.
And that's what I love about this, because you can tell that this band knows that what they are. I remember growing up that metalcore was kind of like a bad term to be calling your band. Like there were several
Yeah.
times I was in a band called The Merchant, and we were very much metalcore, but for whatever reason we didn't like to be called. We were southern metal, we called ourselves, but it was very much just that southern flavor of metalcore. But this band, Single Wound, you can tell that they embrace it, and I think that's important for bands to know exactly what they're going for. And this band does. Cole is such a good vocalist. He really nails all the things that they need to. Like I said, I haven't heard the song yet. We can do a reaction soon.
Yeah, we definitely will.
But there's no doubt in my mind that Tommy jumping on the track is not going to be anything less than hype.
Yeah, no, Tommy's also a buddy of mine. Great. I love shout out to Rust, shout out to World Grasp, which is Tommy's solo project. And Single Wound is a pretty cool band. I have not heard this track either, so we decided that it made sense to do a reaction together on the few songs that we managed to not hear at the same time. So we are definitely going to get a reaction done for those boys. So tune in. We'll let you know what we think. And the last bit isn't a release, but I just kind of wanted to give a kind of insane and formal congratulations to the band Teeth for signing to Nuclear Blast Records, guys.
That's huge.
Let me repeat that. Nuclear Blast Records. That's absolutely crazy. Chris was the guitarist of Dead and Divine, for anyone who'd be listening who might not know that. And again, just one of, in my opinion, like just a phenomenal guitarist. Every Teeth song is so interesting and hectic and different from the last. And I know it's an older song, but older, I guess, in the grand scheme of things. But Eyes Horns Mouth is mixed incredibly.
Yeah, it's a cool
tune.
It
is crushing sounding. So congratulations to them.
And Chris, I mean, just to add on to what you're saying, Chris also played in 100 Suns, which was a cool little project with
the vocalist of Norma Jean
and Legs from Every Time I Die.
Mm-hmm.
They were a cool little project. And then Blake's been in bands like Skynet, Anniversary, Modern Miniatures. So like they've been around the block. They're
Straight reads the line.
Straight reads the line.
We got to talk about Straight reads the line. Yeah.
So they've been, they're seasoned musicians. Did you see the tour that they just announced?
Remind me.
Tala, I believe, is the band. I can't. It's TAL.
Oh, I'm actually aware of the YouTuber who started that band.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, he actually got famous. No, I don't want to say famous. I don't want to I talking out of my ass. But he seemed to get a lot of exposure because Jared Dines, I believe, did like a one of those contests where he's like, "Jay, do the vocals over this instrumental," and that kid crushed it. It was like so System of a Down influence. He was hitting these like operatic notes and stuff. It was really, really interesting. Oh God, I think it's deleted now, but we should try to find it one day. I'd love to actually get you reacting to that. But that band's actually kind of interesting.
Yeah, big tour for Teeth. I mean, I saw it all over Reddit that people were excited. People were looking forward to seeing Teeth. I actually haven't had the opportunity to see Teeth. They've only played a handful of shows here and there. But I do enjoy their music, and I do look forward to seeing them. And yeah, congratulations to them. Nuclear Blast Records, bands like fucking All Shall Perish. I think
Machine Head. I think
Machine Head.
We're wrong about everything. Metallica.
Lamb of God was on that. No, big bands have been on Nuclear Blast. There's no doubt about that. So that's huge for them. Good for them. And congrats on the tour too. That's going to be nothing but successful. So yeah, that's great.
So I wanted to get into the topic about you being a dad and talk to you about what that's like, because I have no clue. You've been Hardcore's dad for a bit, it feels like, and now you're the dad to a real life little human. So how's that been going for you? Fill everybody in. I'm sure everyone's excited to hear how it's been.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for asking. Little Parker is he's a little bundle of joy. We absolutely love him. Of course. It'd be awful. I come on the mic and be like,
if you didn't.
Yeah, you know what? I'd be like, no, of course. I'm gonna talk a little bit of how, leading up to it, it's all very surreal. You're
Mhm.
you're very concerned about taking care of your pregnant spouse, and once the baby comes, it comes crashing in, like the reality really hits you. And like wept uncontrollably when we saw him as
Right.
soon as he came out, of course. And we love him. He is a massive baby. He's just shy of 3 months. He's honestly like 2.5 months old right now, and he is in the 97th percentile of his height, which means that he is 97% taller than most babies his age. So he's like 2 feet already. It's crazy. We're gonna have this monster baby. He's gonna be able to beat me up when he's 16. I don't know how I'm gonna feel about that. But of course, it's a great time. We have the help of we live at my in-laws. That's like why a lot of this has changed. Most of the folks who've
Mhm.
tuned into Bandecfolks know that the set used to be downstairs in the basement. We've obviously moved out of St. Catharines, and we're in Dunville, which has been an experience in itself. People in Dunville really pride themselves being out of this little town, and it's really funny. Maybe we can get into it another time or something, but it's a strange little town. And I'm enjoying myself being here. But yeah, being a dad is lots of fun. Of course, the little rascals, he's always making us laugh every day. He smiles. He's always making goo goo gaga sounds and whatnot. He's learning quite a bit. Lots of fun stuff becoming that. Obviously, if somebody has been thinking about having a child, I don't know if I'm the one to be telling you you should be doing that and pulling the trigger. However, I'm just saying from my personal experience, obviously it's been amazing, and I wouldn't trade you for the world.
Yeah, no, I mean, it'd be concerning, I guess, if you said any less. Obviously, we've been lifelong friends, right? So it's just so exciting, even for me, to see you have a kid and stuff. It's just so cool. I just feel like it's a really good fit for you specifically. I think you're gonna do a great job. I would have liked to have been a kid raised by you when I
Oh,
was a little boy. How does that sound?
thank you. That's I
Yeah.
honestly I appreciate that,
No, but
especially coming
I'm
from yourself.
Oh no, sincerely, I'm really excited for him. I know he's going to be good and taken care of. I think you're going to enjoy having a kid. I think that it lends to your personality so well. I just you're very like you've always been very vulnerable in a way that is really like good. You know what I mean? Not like I think people hear that word and they immediately associate it with like a weakness or something like that. But you've always just been so genuinely authentic, and I think that that's gonna I think it makes it easier. I've interacted with like a younger kid in the last few years. It's there's a little story to go into there. We'll save it for another time. But it was so hard for me because I have this like I was always that type of kid who was like, oh, like what if a music hipster grabs my phone out of my hand and sees that I have like a band on here that isn't cool or something like that. So I've always had this like kind of barrier up to be that vulnerable. So I just find it so refreshing. And I think that it's gonna lend to you so well because I think you can inhabit being just goofy and getting on someone's level in such a pure way. So
I'm
yeah,
looking
definitely
forward to it.
yeah, I'm excited for you. And I mean, obviously, Haley, I think she'll be a great mother. I think you guys are going to do, I think it's going to be super cool. And going through that sort of thing, I know that us growing up, a big thing that you did for me was showed me like some of the best animations, some of the best shows. One of my favorite TV shows to this day is still Delocated, I think it's called.
Yes, I
Like
love
what
Delocated.
just we I would love to just even just sit and watch that with you and do a reaction on like Twitch or something like that because that show is like absolutely genius. And I'm just sort of curious like I guess like in a perfect world where like you don't have to worry I guess too much about what you're showing Parker in terms of like content and stuff like that, barring that and not thinking about like, well, this show is technically 18, so do I really want to say I want to show my kid this? Barring all that type of shit, like what type of like animations would you be excited to show Parker when they're a teenager?
There's a show it's couple it's old now, but I'm sure I've showed you it in the passing, or if I haven't, this a good recommendation to definitely check out. A show called Super Jail. I'm sure you're familiar with it. It's high animation. It's like so much happens in a matter of 10 seconds. I love that style. Of course, like you said, no holds bar, like we're not worrying about the actual content that's
Yeah,
happening
yeah.
in the show. I think it's a very high velocity animated show that is very stimulating, and I as someone who has always appreciated artwork and cartoons and
Right.
whatnot, Super Jail would probably be at the top of my list. Of course, The Simpsons. I'm a huge Simpsons fan. Anyone who's
Right.
ever seen Hellbent knows that I'm always wearing a Simpsons shirt. um of course, that's going to be up there. You know what, if I'm going to do a top three right now, I mean, I think Rick and Morty comes to mind, but that might just be, or might just be in the moment. There's probably a better answer for that, but for now, we're probably for a placeholder. Rick and Morty, another very high velocity animated, not nearly as crazy as Super Jail, but it's certainly got a probably the funniest out of those three. Would probably
Right.
be Rick and Morty.
Obviously, animated shows were something that was important to you growing up. A lot of stuff you showed me that I really liked, but obviously something that, is truly impactful to your life must have been music. You seem to care about it quite a bit.
Just a bit.
So, this might be kind of a, big question considering, the importance of your son to you and all that. But the 5 albums you would show Parker, if those albums could theoretically sort of guide them into being having like a musical, how would I explain this, the type of musical taste, how like when you're in like, when you're an adult and you think about something a kid said to you in like grade 4 and you're like, oh man, I would own this kid now. What would you, if you could instill your musical taste onto like a 15-year-old now or 15-year-old Parker now, what 5 albums do you think would be the main ones you would use to sort of create what they consider good music?
So let's do this. Let's get right into this. I don't know if I have a top, if we're going to do it by order. I'm not going to tell you which one I think is better. I'm just going to throw
Right.
5 records at you. First, to begin with, I'm going to throw Ride the Lightning by Metallica at you. Probably my favorite record by the band. I know a lot of people like Injustice for, there's actually, it doesn't matter who you talk to. Someone's got a big opinion about the band. They're going to tell you which record they love the most and which record they hate.
Right.
Just straight up forward, Ride the Lightning, introduction. We're assuming at this point Parker hasn't even checked out Metallica. This is the record that I think he should start with. Moving on, I would say Seven Travels by Atmosphere. This is the record that got me into Atmosphere, who is one of my favorite all-time artists.
Right.
Slug and Ant are a duo to not be fucked with. They're still constantly putting out music. They're constantly putting on big shows. The guy is almost 50 and he's still rapping, which is just admirable because, like, I mean, he's got a whole thing with rhyme sayers. It's an artist who I absolutely cherish and love. This is where it gets tough because like those records were really easy for me to answer. Obviously we have to mention that this band has done some bad things and they're not really as mired as they once were before, but it's undeniable the impact that they had on me growing up. I'm gonna have to say Brand New's Deja Entudu. um we'll just leave it at that. I think everything else can be said. Slipknot, we cannot deny the impact that this band is still. I don't like the new stuff, we can just throw that out there right away, but I'm gonna pour out, you know, some might say self-titled, some might say Iowa. I'm gonna go ahead and say All Hope Is Gone because it's just a little bit more accessible for, say, in this case, he hasn't heard Slipknot, and then he can go back and listen to those great records because there's nothing wrong with them. I'm just trying to think of for his sake.
Right.
I think that's 4. I think I have one more left. This is an easy one. The Smiths, another problematic individual. Morrissey, we can all agree that he is not a likable person. However, the Smiths had an impact on the decade of the 80s. They're still going. Several people still enjoy the music of the band, and it's not uncommon for me to throw that record on if I feel like singing.
Right. No, I think those are all good answers. They're all answers that, honestly, for the most part, I don't want to say surprised me. I guess I really didn't know what you would say going in. And I think that given the criteria, it's kind of an interesting viewpoint to try to view it from, right? Because it's like you're not necessarily naming your top 5 best albums. It's more like if I could like help someone understand genres and music, it's a good way of looking at it. And I think that there's a lot of projection that happens with people. I think it's easy to think about before you have a kid. You know what I mean? And I actually wonder to ask you, and you don't have to answer this if it makes you uncomfortable, but do you feel like now that you actually have a kid, like if your kid like heard your band and was like, this is stupid, why would you, this is just screaming, like do you think it would actually bother you, or do you think you'd just be like, well,
No, it absolutely wouldn't bother me.
you're not going to try to police them into being a punk?
No, not at all. In fact, I'm gonna embrace whatever they're into, and then I'm gonna feel like that if they get into some sort of genre that I've never really found myself attracted to, whether it be I can't even pull a genre out to you because I'm pretty open about most stuff.
Right.
But let's say it's modern country because I don't really enjoy that. Maybe I'll embrace it at that point. Who knows?
Right.
Maybe I won't. And maybe there's some other genre that hasn't been made yet that's coming out in 16 years or some shit like that that I probably won't understand quite at first, but I'll appreciate the fact that they'll be showing me. So I'm very open to yeah, not absolutely policing them to being into the hard stuff. Will they hear it when they're around me? Of course, that's just the
Right.
music I enjoy. But yeah, by no means like, you know, my dad loves jazz. Of course, everyone has their flavor of jazz that they enjoy, but my dad was always putting on the jazz channel when I was growing up, and I definitely didn't enjoy it when I was growing up. I can appreciate it now, but like I feel like it might be in a similar case where dad's always listening to metal. I fucking hate this stuff. So I'm already embracing it.
Right. Yeah, no, and it makes sense. Yeah, and I think it's one of those things that like again, I'm so disconnected from it, right? But it's like you just sort of see like I guess like for lack of a better word, like the memes online and stuff, right? Where it's like, oh, when I have a kid, I'm going to show them the Pantera and they're going to end up like this. And it's just I always found it just so like I don't know. I think that a good relationship with your parent is so synonymous with stuff like that. Like unfortunately, not to make this downer, I never had like a great relationship with my dad, and I found that all the music that he liked, I just like immediately hated. You know what I mean?
Of
I just
course.
immediately had this disdain for anything like that. So but I grew up around people who like it would shock me that like, oh, I'm really into Led Zeppelin, and the answer always seemed to be like, well, I really like my dad. You know what I mean? It's like, well, my dad listened to it, so it just it's in there. So even as a teenager, if you don't think you're gonna like it and stuff, we all enter nostalgia eventually, right? And if I think a healthy relationship with a parental figure is definitely going to make those things seem less cringe, I guess, for lack of a better word. So
Yeah.
but I think you have more to worry about when your kids like why is this song called Heap of Human Ash?
Yeah, that's probably it's I've never considered that. That's probably a conversation we'll have to have eventually.
No, it's no, but like I said, I'm really happy for both you and Haley. I think you guys are going to absolutely crush it, and it's going to be, I hopefully will have a little one running around in the next few years, assuming that my life,
You heard it
doesn't
here
go
first.
insane. Having a baby, but I don't know when.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think that it's going to be really cool for you guys. All right, awesome. I mean, well, thank you again, for being so open and honest about your experience with Parker. I'm really excited for you guys. I think you guys are both going to absolutely crush it. And thank you again for letting me be a part, of the podcast. And I'm really excited to grow this with you.
That's right. And I hope everyone watching really enjoys this kind of format that we're doing. There's all sorts of stuff to be said. We're trying new things out. Let us know in the comments what you think about this. Should this be breaking down more? Just let us all know what's happening. We're just trying to figure this out as we go. But I had a great time with Tyler. Thank you for doing this with me. I don't think I could have picked another co-host better than yourself. Yeah, I think on that note, we can actually leave with maybe some recommendations of the week and stuff that we can plug. Maybe not necessarily new releases, maybe just something that you've just really been listening to. Do you have anything that you can recommend to the listeners or viewers?
Yeah, anyone who knows me isn't going to find my recommendation surprising, but for anyone who has not heard this band, there was a old hardcore band called Endwell. And that band Endwell put out 2 albums, Consequences and Punishment. I'm particularly recommending Consequences, but honestly, both albums are really good. In a time of like lunkhead sort of meathead, like beat you up metalcore, the Emirs, the Acacia, the early Acacia strains, all that type of music. Endwell felt like a thinking man's sort of like hardcore band. The lyrics felt like truly anguished. Sean Murphy is like a personal hero of mine, just in terms of what he did with that band. So yeah, I definitely have to recommend the band Endwell and the album Consequences. What about you?
Hell yeah. My weekly Nick recommendation is gotta be this is no surprise. I've been listening to a bunch of them. Anybody who's been hanging out with me in the last week know exactly what I'm gonna talk about. Bury Your Dead is obviously this iconic Boston, Massachusetts metalcore hardcore band. If you've never heard this band, please check out the record Cover Your Tracks. I think their first record, You Had Me at Hello, is also really good, but I think if you're just going to dive right into something that you've never heard before, definitely check out Cover Your Tracks. This is just something that I've grown. This is a band that I've always loved, but like time moves on, you forget about some bands, you forget about some of the times that you've listened to, the times you were in your life for where they may have been at, and this band has always stuck with me. Cover Your Tracks, jam it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And just to double up off that, I'd actually say also check out their album right after those two called Beauty and the Breakdown.
I see your week.